Ukulele upstarts. How are we today? Good. Notice my little microphone here? I know. Kind of nice, eh? I feel like I'm Britney Spears. It's a reference that's gone over a lot of people's heads. Okay, we normally start off with a warm-up that goes 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, and the claps and the stamps. We know that. If you like it, go and do that. Go and do that. But I've got another song for you to do, which I think is a very useful one to learn. And if we do it every single week, you'll really get the hang of it before too long. And it's a really useful, fun song. This song here, it's quite complicated, so we'll take a bit of time learning it. It is from Horrible Histories. Who likes Horrible Histories? I love Horrible Histories. I wish it had been around when I was your age. I might have enjoyed history a bit because it's really good fun. And does anyone know the Kings and Queens song from Horrible Histories? It's basically a song that goes through all the kings and queens of England from the very beginning to the very end. And there's a little line about each one, but they sum it all up in a chorus. And we're going to learn it. And if we do it every single week, trust me, you will know this inside out. And then you will know all the kings and queens of England from the beginning to right up to present day. And it'd be really useful for history and in pub quizzes, things like that. So here it is. I'm just going to see if it can magically appear on the screen. Bing! Hopefully that's occurred. Hopefully it's there. Anyway, I'm sure it is. So I will sing it to you. Follow it along, and then we'll take it apart. So I'll sing it first of all, and then I shall take it apart with you. Have a listen to how the melody goes. It goes like this. It goes: William, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Oi! Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. Edward, Edward, Rich the 3rd. Henry, Henry, Ed again. Mary 1, good Queen Bess. Jimmy, Charles, and then Jim, Will, Mary, Anna, Gloria, George, 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 Will, Victoria, Edward, George, Edward, George, 6, Liz, 2, and Charles completes the mix. That's all the English kings and queens since William the First that there have been. There we go, the kings and queens of England from the top all the way down to the bottom. I'm not entirely sure I like the sound of this ukulele. You got a bit of a hum there. Okay, we'll have to live with the hum. Okay, so as you can see, they've changed some of the names. They've not gone Henry the First, Henry the Second to make it work in the song. William, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. There's an oi in there. Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2. They've got 3 Eds. Edward the First, Edward the Second, and Edward the Third. And then 3 more Henrys join our song. So they don't say, hang on, Henry the 1, 2, 3. They don't say Henry the 4th, 5th, and 6th. They don't say, they just say 3 more Henrys. So that's just the way it is. So let's go line by line. Top line, it goes: William, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Thank you. You'll notice in this line there's only 2 notes really. Da 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 da. It's like an ambulance. Dee nee 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 nee. William, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Let's sing it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. William, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. One more time, bit slower. William, 2, 3, off you go. William, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Oi! Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. There's no time for hesitation here. Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. First 2 lines. I'll sing it first. Sing along in your mind. So not out your mouth, but out in your mind. Nice and loud inside your head, please. It goes 1, 2, just the first 2 lines. It goes: William, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. in case you haven't guessed already, this is a ukulele's down thing. This is a singing thing, not a ukulele thing, because I've not written any chords, and you don't know them anyway. So, one more time, those two lines. William, William, ba-da-da-da-da-da. I want to hear the oys as well. Here we go. Stay seated. Just an oi in the air would be good. 1, 2, 3, off you go. William, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. Perfect. If you need to recap that, feel free to rewind the tape. The next bit is slightly different in melody. You'll hear it climbing up. Da, 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 da. It climbs up and up. Edward, Edward, Rich the third, Henry, Henry, Ed again. And then the next line stays on the same note. Mary 1, good Queen Bess, Jimmy, Charles, and then. So lines 3 and 4, starting with Edward. Have a listen. Don't sing it out loud, but listen to where I'm placing the notes and read along with my singing. So it goes 3, 4. Edward, Edward, Rich the third, Henry, Henry, Ed again, Mary 1, good Queen Bess, Jimmy, Charles, and then. Got it? Your turn. So from Edward, Edward, Rich the third, Henry, Henry, Ed again. Here we go. 1, 2, off we go. Edward, Edward, Rich the third, Henry, Henry, Ed again. And then Mary 1, good Queen Bess, Jimmy, Charles, and then. So those notes there, Mary 1, those notes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's the 8 up there. Mary 1. So remember what that feels like to hit that top 8. 8. Mary 1, good Queen Bess, Jimmy, Charles, and then. It's not down the bottom. You've got to push that note up. Mary 1. Take a nice deep breath. Always. Okay, I'm going to sing you the first 4 lines, and then it's your turn. It goes like this. Oh, William, William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Oi! Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. Edward, Edward, Rich the third, Henry, Henry, Ed again, Mary 1, good Queen Bess, Jimmy, Charles, and then. There we go. All right, your turn. Here we go. I'll try and help you out. But William, here we go. 1, 2, William goes. William, Henry, Richard, John. Oi! Henry, Ed, Ed, Ed's Rich, 2, then 3 more. Edward, Edward, Rich the third, Henry, Mary 1, good Queen Bess, Jimmy, Charles, and then. Yeah, that second line. Henry, Ed, 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 Rich, 2. There's a lot of words for your mouth to chew on, isn't it? There's a lot to go on there. So, first 4 lines. We're halfway through. Great. So the next bit. Jim, now this is quite straightforward with the melody. Jim, Will, Mary, Anna, Gloria, George, 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 Will, Victoria. So you've got 3 notes. Ba-da-da, then back to the first one. Do-do-do-do, and then you do the same thing but just a bit low. Do-do-do-do, then do-do-do-do, be-do-do-do. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So you take the same 3 notes but just lower them each time you sing them. I'll sing it again. Have a listen. It goes. Jim, Will, Mary, Anna, Gloria, George, 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 Will, Victoria. And you can see how my fingers move down. Da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. So what you sing matches up with the ukulele, and what the ukulele plays matches to what you sing. And as you're coming down, we're going out here. You know? So from Jim, Will, Mary, it sounds like this. Jim, Will, Mary, Anna, Gloria, George, 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 Will, Victoria. The Georges were a bit nuts, weren't they? King George first? King George the First went, you know what? I'm king. I have a son. I shall name him George. And everyone's like, I know it's a great name, sir, but it's going to get a bit confusing. No, it'll be fine. We'll call him George II. Great. And then he grew up and he went, my dad was called George. I'm called George. I have a son. I shall call him. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Please don't do it. George! Oh, he did it, didn't he? He did it again. Then he grew up and he went, my grandfather was called George. My father was called George. I'm called George. I have a son. I shall name him Max. No, George. Oh, no, done it again. Which Christmases must have been very interesting. Anyway, so George, Will, Victoria. I bet Will, George the Fourth went, fed up with this George business. Let's call him Will. The next line. Edward, George 6, Liz 2, and Charles completes the mix. I had to change that last line because of recent events with Liz 2 and the oncoming of Charles. So Edward, George 6, Liz 2, and Charles completes the mix. Same idea. Dee-da-da-da-da-da-da, Liz 2 and Charles completes the mix. So I'm now going to sing from Jim, Will, Mary. Find Jim, Will, Mary. Find Jim. There he is. And follow along with me. It goes. Jim, Will, Mary, Anna, Gloria, George, Will, Victoria, Edward, George 6, Liz 2, and Charles completes the mix. Yeah, good. Should we sing it all the way through from the beginning up to that point there? Then we'll do the last bit. So, do you remember? William. From the beginning. William, not too quickly. 1 and 2 and 3. Off we go. William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Oi! Henry, Ed, Rich 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. Edward, Rich the 3rd. Henry, Ed again. Mary 1, good Queen Bess. Jimmy, Charles, and then Jim, Will, Mary, Anna, Gloria, George, Will, Victoria, Edward, George 6, Liz 2, and Charles completes the mix. Nice! That's all the English kings and queens since William the First that there have been. So you can go, there have been, or there have been. Since William the First that there have been. William the First that there have been. Anyway, I'm going to go up, you go down, do whatever. You need to take a big breath. So, that last line. That's all the English kings and queens is very similar to another part in this song, which is Edward, Rich the 3rd, Henry, Ed again. That's all the English kings and queens since William the First that there have been. Yep. All right, from the beginning all the way through, take a nice big breath. Make sure your mouth chews on all those kings and queens. Henry, Ed, Rich 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. There's a lot. We'll do this every week, and the more we do it, the easier it's going to be for you. Trust me on this. It's going to get easier and easier, and you're going to know all the kings and queens of England before you know it. Okay, it goes like this. William, 1, 2, off you go. William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Oi! Henry, Ed, Rich 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. Edward, Rich the 3rd. Henry, Ed again. Mary 1, good Queen Bess. Jimmy, Charles, and then Jim, Will, Mary, Anna, Gloria, George, Will, Victoria, Edward, George 6, Alice 2, and Charles completes the mix. Nice! That's all the English kings and queens since William the First that there have been. I'll take that. Brilliant! We'll do it one more time. Should we do it one more? A bit faster, but not really fast. Just a bit faster. William, Henry, Stephen, boo, 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 boo. Hey, here we go. If you want to sing along to see the whole song, I think it's YouTubeable. It used to be. I'm pretty sure it is now. All right, from the beginning. William, 1, 2, 3, off we go. William, Henry, Stephen, Henry, Richard, John. Oi! Henry, Ed, Rich 2, then 3 more Henrys join our song. Edward, Edward, Rich the Third, Henry, Henry, Ed again, Mary one, good Queen Bess, Jimmy, Charles, and then Jim, Will, Mary, Anna, Gloria, George, 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 Will, Victoria, Edward, George, 6, Liz 2, and Charles completes the mix. That's all the English kings and queens since William the First that there have been. Hey, hey! The Kings and Queens song is now yours.